My oh my, the time has come. The college football playoff is here, and tonight we are breaking down round one of the 12-team college football playoff for the first time ever. But we got to start off with breaking news. Boys are all here. Reese is stand-in for hopefully a while now. Is JT. JT from our Iowa State show is in the studio tonight. Will be joining the show hopefully for the foreseeable future. But we got to talk about it, Jake. John Mateer, former Washington State quarterback, just committed and signed to OU. He will play in the SEC next year for Brent Venables. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when you can, at least right now, you have a chance to go and get the best guy in the portal, at least ranked a 247. I think it's a great opportunity. I like John Mateer. I like his game. I mean, obviously, we saw how the last Washington State quarterback who transferred out, he did it all right. He had an all right year, I think.
Pretty good
Cam
year.
Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward.
You ever heard of him? But it's going to be interesting. He has his offensive coordinator that he's going to be paired up with. So, I mean, the rumors were it was pretty predictable. It was just a matter of how fast can Oklahoma get it done, because I think Miami and maybe somebody else was after him pretty good for who needs a quarterback next year. Is it an upgrade from Jackson Arnold? For next year, yes. For the foreseeable future, 2 or 3 years down the road, obviously, I think Arnold's got a couple more years left. We'll have to wait and see. But maybe it's someone who just saved Brent Venables' job next year.
That was my first question, too, is does it match the preseason hype of Jackson Arnold? Yes, because you do have the experience on film and you've seen Mateer have more success than Arnold has in his career so far, but he's probably going to be fine. JT, let's talk to you. What do you think about the Mateer move? What about the portal in general? Any names floating around? We'll cover the portal, but while we're on it.
I think the Mateer move was pretty big for Oklahoma. If they would have lost him to Miami, it sounded like Miami was starting to get ready to be a pretty big player there. If they would have lost him to there, I think things would have started to look pretty bleak for Venables in Oklahoma, especially coming off after the season they just had. They definitely need to make a splash and kind of get the fan base rejuvenated about something.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. What do you think, JP? JP's also here tonight. You excited to break down the college football playoff first round?
Yeah, but hey, ready to rock 4 really good games here. The Mateer thing, it's curiosity to me based on, what we saw him do at Wazoo this year. Can he take a step up in the passing game, be a little more accurate, make downfield throws, the things that you're going to have to do in the SEC, and especially in an Oklahoma offense that struggled this year. Now they're kind of revitalizing it, bringing it back up. The receiver room struggled, and it was hurt a lot this year. So, I mean, there's multiple things that need to go right for, I think, that one to really hit for Oklahoma.
All right, let's leave the portal there. We'll revisit it. Tonight's show, we got a lot to cover. As we've already told you, we're going to preview all 4 first-round matchups of the college football playoff. Along with that, we're going to go through a light version of coaching news, not as much as last week with head coach hirings. Then we will go into the transfer portal, go through that list of names where they signed, if they're in the portal. Obviously, we get to break the show with 18 minutes ago, John Mateer tweeting that. So we will go back to the portal after we talk coaching news. Let's lead it off with coaching news. But before we do that, let's hit the like button. Let's hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 1,000. We're at 8:35 before the show started. Hit the like button right now. Hit the subscribe button. If you're not, drop a comment on all of our predictions. Let us know what you're thinking in the games. It's your space too, and we appreciate you being here. Now let's go to coaching news. The only one that stands out in my mind, and let's take brief thoughts from everybody on this. Dan Mullen, UNLV. What are your thoughts, Jake?
I think it's a good hire. I was a little surprised to, I don't know. I mean, clearly we're not in the walls, right? But I want to know what the relationship between Marion was, the offensive coordinator there. Did he get an interview? Did they give him much of a shot? Was he much of a consideration? Obviously, as we're recording this on Wednesday night, he decided to not coach in the LA Bowl tonight because he's weighing his other options. He's rumored to go to Sac State, I think is where he's right now. So I don't know. I like Dan Mullen. I think he's he's a good fit for Vegas. Just kind of like he's pretty relaxed. He's going to have a fun, exciting offense. I think he's going to bring a lot of flash to UNLV football, which is needed in a market where I think you can excel, even with the Raiders, the Golden Knights, whatever's going on there. I think UNLV football still has an opportunity to succeed there with money and just their image and brand.
Back-to-back good years for the Running Rebels. What did you think of that move, JP? Any other coaching news that comes to mind? I mean, Michael Vick to Norfolk State, pretty notable because of the name.
I'm curious on the Mullen thing and how he actually approaches being the head coach at UNLV. Like the idea of what?
I just remembered one, but go ahead. We'll get through it.
I was going to say, like, he didn't love the recruiting aspect of being at Florida, and he had a lot of guys do it for him. Like, is he going to be a high school recruiter? Is he going to lean on the portal, like guys that are P4 fallbacks? I just want to know how that really works out and what his plan is and what his plan of attack is for UNLV.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be. What do you think, JT? Any thoughts on Mullen?
I thought it was a good hire for UNLV. I was just a little surprised to see Mullen actually land at that spot. It kind of seemed like he was having a good thing going on TV, and he was like one of the hotter names there for a little bit. At least maybe last year he was, not as much this year, where it kind of seemed like he was waiting to find a good Power 5 or Power 4 job that he could land at. So I was a little surprised to see him go to the Group of 5 level, but like you said, I mean, it's a pretty good, as far as Group of 5 goes, it's a pretty good landing spot out in Vegas with the success that they've had recently. So you never know.
In other coaching news, I did put a poll out on our YouTube community. So if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're not, head over to the YouTube and hit the subscribe button. But on our community, I put a post out with 4 options of the new head coaching hires. Some we noted last week: Barry Odom at Purdue, Scott Frost at UCF, Rich Rod at WVU, and Belichick at North Carolina. Those were the 4 options. Obviously very loaded. There's some other young options. Alban is in the mix, but I left those 4 to see what people said. Here are the comments of what we got back. This one comes from Sid Snyder, one of the Iowa State fan perspective fans. He's constantly on there. Shout out, Sid. None of the above. I don't know Odom, but the other 3 are desperately trying to get the glory back, and they're all used to be good coaches. What do you guys think about that? I think that list, outside of Odom, he said he didn't know Odom, but is it trying to relive the glory days via Schiano style? Is that what you get from those coaching moves?
I don't think he's far. Yeah, I don't think he's far off, honestly.
No. I that's what I said about Frost too, is that's the only place I think he would have been as welcomed as he was because of what he did there. But we'll have to see with what happens with Rich Rodriguez. I don't know how excited that fan base is. I've seen some hype videos built, but coaching news has been a little bit slower with the portal picking up.
I don't know if I'd say Rich Rod used to be a good coach, though. I mean, he just had some pretty good success.
Yeah, that's true.
Used to be a good head coach. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. We'll see if he rebirths. You don't need that. West Virginia Falls last night. You don't need that, JT.
They're drinking a lot of Kool-Aid right now. They need to realize what college football looks like compared to the last time he was running the sidelines in Morgantown. It's a little different.
The weird thing about it is there hasn't been a ton of guys from Jack State jump in the portal. And I mean, I don't know. West Virginia hasn't really had a ton of activity yet either. Just kind of something to note. But speaking of going back, the other one I just remembered, Phil Longo, Sam Houston State.
I
don't know if it'll work, but I think they need I think they need a high-flying offense. I think if they go air raid style, I think that just adds some more fun to Conference USA football in a team and a fan base that I don't know. Sam Houston feels passionate to me. I feel like they care.
I think so.
But they got a lot of dudes in the portal. Leading tackler, leading rusher, leading receiver. So he's got some work to do to try to get him back. But I think Sam Houston somewhere.
You can fine tune that probably, right? Like I don't even know if they need a high flying offense, maybe just an offense. I mean, they were struggling all year, and their defense was elite. So we'll see how he replaces there. But let's go to the transfer portal you briefly mentioned. Let's talk about the notable players in the portal. Obviously, we broke one early in the show, but I'm going to go through the list. Then I'm going to go to each of you. Tell me who stuck out, who you're looking at. I'll probably go to JP first with this first name, but Bo Pribula, he's in Iowa today. The Penn State backup quarterback transfers early because of the window's fall. He will not go to the college football playoff, so he's already in the portal. Justice Haynes from Alabama, Eric Singleton, Zachariah Branch from USC, John Mateer, we already covered. He is probably looking to head to OU. I couldn't tell. After I re-looked at the tweet, we might have broke that too early. Could have just been a visit. Williams Nawari, transfer from Missouri, going to Nebraska, highest recruit ever in Nebraska football history. Varian Brown from LSU. Michael Van Buren from LSU. Miller Moss goes to Louisville. This is commitments, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Arnold to Auburn and Ashton Daniels to Auburn as well. So they stacked that quarterback room with Robbie Ashford leaving and Peyton Thorns out of the mix. Now, what are your guys' thoughts on the commitments, on the guys in the portal? JP, I'll go to you first. How bad do you want Pribula and Iowa City?
I think the scheme fits. What makes me more excited about it is just what's coming out about what Lester's doing and how bad Lester wants this guy on campus and how he thinks he fits within the offense and what he can do with a guy like that under center. I think that's what excites me, is that he has the pull now in the quarterback room. And Jacob's going to say some smart ass thing like he's just going to deteriorate over a couple of years.
I have a question.
What?
How much are you willing to pay him?
I mean, they gave $600,000 to McNamara, so I can imagine
that's what I'm saying.
It would be around
And
that.
tampered.
Yeah, everybody
Tampered
fucking tampered.
and $600,000.
Everybody tampers. Ferentz was just like, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." So
I'm not asking like a sarcastic asshole. I'm genuinely
that's what
wondering because
I'd be around that, I would assume.
I don't know, from all the local stuff we listen to, it feels like Iowa doesn't really have a ton of money right now, just because of like what they gave McNamara. And I don't know. It's not like I've heard a ton of things that Iowa's got all this money.
They don't have like, they're not swimming in money, but they're not also struggling. They just we have to be smart with how it go about things, right? Like it's a different way to do it. Like we're in a state with 3 million people and it's split between two big ass football programs. Like neither one of us are going to be swimming in it. But I think they're just trying to be smart about where it goes. And, there's a lot of people asking for too much money in the portal in the first place. Like there's a lot of average players in there thinking they're going to have a payday. Some of them will, other ones are inflated, and we've like passed on it. We've had, the Swarm come out and say, well, like there's no reason to even jump into that one. But I would assume he's getting similar numbers. Iowa's not going to be the top offer money wise for him. And I don't think that's what it'll come down to, but you have to be in the ballpark.
It's fair. The other two rumorings around his name was Iowa, and what were the other two, JP?
Missouri, and
That's
then where else was he earlier?
That's
this
what I'm
week?
saying. I'm drawing the blank on the logo too.
He's got one more that he was looking at. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but he's already been on campus at Missouri and he's in Iowa City at this moment.
So we'll see where he goes. All right. Other names, Zachariah Branch. That one's kind of intriguing. Sophomore slump for Zachariah Branch, but pretty explosive as a true freshman. Still has that ability. Where do you think he'll land? Where's a good fitting spot? If you had to pick one, Jake, what are you thinking?
Well, he's got the do not contact tag on, or whatever they call that.
So he's got to know where he's going.
I was going to say, so obviously he is pretty certain where he's going. The only rumor I've seen is Alabama. All right, Cowboy.
Michael Vick hired at Norfolk State. Indeed. There's our breaking news.
Wow.
The noise for appreciate.
Wow.
No, that's not that. Sometimes they fall into your lap.
It's too early for that. It is way too early for
Sometimes
that.
they fall into your lap, and you gotta take them. That was
Goodness
sorry. X that out. Kids show. Back down to Jake.
No, I don't know. I'd say Alabama. Georgia feels like they need somebody, but they haven't gotten anybody. That's where Eric Singleton was rumored to go, and now it feels like he's going to be Ole Miss here soon. So
yeah, I think Dane Key's high in the mix at Georgia, right?
Yeah,
The Kentucky transfer.
I can see it.
Yeah, I think
Wouldn't be
he's high in that
surprised.
mix.
on everybody's that's receivers board right now. They would just want
Speaking of do not contact tags, Nebraska got Williams Nawari, who also had a do not contact tag right after he left Mizzou. I'm sure there was no tampering. I bet you that was a clean transaction.
Can we really say he's the highest rated recruit in Nebraska history? Like that's got to be for freshmen. That's got to be like
it'd be what his number was.
Yes, what his number, but his number. He's not.
You wouldn't get
a
to claim that. No, you would just claim him as a 5-star transfer or a 4-star transfer.
He's a 4-star transfer now, so that's
there's
what
not
I'm
a
saying.
5-star transfer right now, which is odd to me.
There-
But this
I
portal
believe
hasn't
it.
been lit up yet.
I believe
We'll
it at
take
this
it.
point.
Either way, we'll take it.
I'm just saying. You said it was the highest rated recruit, and I was like, well,
That's what they said. It was
Yeah.
Raiola. Now it's Nawari. Hopefully,
The
they'll just keep
ratings with
building.
that and the
Schools
transfers
cooking.
don't really make a whole lot of sense. Because did you guys
No.
see Auburn's big post when they got Jackson Arnold? They're like highest like quarterback recruit we've ever had or something like that. And I was like, well, he just got benched and that's
Yeah,
why you guys got him. So
I don't know.
I
don't
think
know.
top 5 Twitter moments of the week, if we're going to talk about online presence and responses, for the response to Alan Bowman's announcement to go to the NFL draft. The people in those
Hey.
comments, what a blessing. That app, I can't believe
won
it's free
Bedlam.
sometimes. Dude,
Have you seen the? I don't want to get too off the rails, but it's college football relevant. Did you guys see the little thing between Schefter and Doug Gottlieb?
Yep.
what was going on there?
Schefter tweets out that basically Sacramento State is getting ready for their jump to the Mountain West with $50 million saved in NIL. That, to my knowledge, to the public knowledge, would be the biggest cap room in
Double.
college football.
that'd be the
Double the
highest
biggest
roster.
one.
Ohio State is 26 million, and that is the highest in college football.
And
So
Gottlieb's
watch
like,
out,
bro.
Sac State. Sac
Yes.
State, the first round bye in the 14-team playoff in 2026. Note that. But all right,
Gottlieb's
let's-
going to end up getting slapped around this year. He loses to Northern Michigan. He's going to come to Des Moines and lose to Drake. I mean, he's not going to have a job here soon. He has to get his Twitter presence rolling.
So he'll still have his day job, I guess.
let's get back to the portal. JT, any thoughts on any players that we named, any commitments, any names floating around out there that spark in your head?
The biggest one that stood out to me was Miller Moss to Louisville. I thought that was a really good landing spot for him.
AP
I
did
know,
call that.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype around him. I know some people thought like Iowa was getting in the mix. There was a bunch of different teams, but I think Jeff Brom's kind of one of the more underrated coaches the last couple of years with what he's done at Louisville. I kind of expected them to get a couple more wins this year than they actually did. And for them to land another solid quarterback, I feel like that just kind of lands them right at the top of the mix in the ACC, which I feel like gets kind of lost in the shuffle with like the Clemsons, the Miamis, Florida State, SMU, stuff like that. So I expect them to be another contributor at the ACC top level, and I think that's going to be a big spot for them.
That is
What
a
do you
big
guys
pickup.
think?
Go ahead.
What do you guys think about? So this is Brahms going to be his third year, going on his third transfer portal quarterback. Like as a fan, is that something you want? Do
Hard
you
to become
want-
a legend at a school, right? Long term,
Right.
if you've been there 1 year, right? Like you're gonna have names remembered. Like they'll remember, what Shuck did. They'll remember, like,
But it's
bits and
also
pieces of Plummer. Like I think they'll remember the kind of the revitalization of the first year, but it'll be overshadowed by the fact that was Brahms' first year back.
I think it's good to have a bridge guy. I think it's good to have a first year starter like Plummer was with Brahm. But like, I just feel like the more you keep doing this, the more you're going to keep gambling on if it's going to work or not. I think Miller Moss is good. I think Jeff Brahm's a good coach, but like, you don't start to get your own guys and start to groom them. Like,
Mhm.
I know what I'm going to get as an Iowa State fan out of Rocco Beck next year, at least for the most part. Things happen, but like, you don't necessarily, there could be a huge ceiling with Miller Moss, but there also, I feel like there's a possibility of a low floor too.
I think he needs, a Jawar Jordan or a Jamari Thrash type stuff like they had a couple years ago, just real playmakers in the backfield and on the edge. And I'm not sure who that is for Louisville next year. I mean, two new ones stepped in this year. It's different for them every year, but I also do trust Brahm to scheme something a little nasty on somebody every Saturday, right? And put up numbers.
Throw a flag at me if I'm far off here, but it feels like what Brahm's doing, especially the numbers he's put up in the portal, it's almost similar to Dion. Like Dion's more marketable about it, where he says, I'm going to go into the portal. We're going to replace kids that are bad, fill the spots. It doesn't matter, like in and out. Brahm's doing that, dude. He put up like 30
Yep.
transfers again last year. Look what he's doing again this year. He's just not marketing like Dion does, but it's a very similar style. So it doesn't feel like it's a long-term thing for, what you were mentioning, Jake, to build and be a hero there long-term.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of agree. What do you think, JT?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, obviously whatever way your coach has to work to have success, that's what you want. But as a fan, I feel like I would want a guy who's going to be around a little longer to go the recruiting route, because I don't really understand what is stopping them from getting the recruits that they want to. If it's just easier for them to attack the portal, if they think they're going to develop somebody and they're going to end up taking off on them. But they're able to land some pretty high level guys. Like, I don't know what star Miller Moss was, but maybe it was just the USC thing. He was really hyped up coming into this season, enough that the 5-star quarterback Malachi Nelson ended up leaving, going to Boise State. Like, he won that job in the offseason. So I don't know if it's just a preference for him, if they think that gives them the higher level in like a 1-season aspect, or if it's just something easier for him.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think the 2 names we forgot, I do want to throw 2 more names, portal-wise commitments out there. James Williams, Nebraska D-end, pretty good season last year, commits to Florida State. Everybody expected that. But the good one, the fun one that I want Jake to comment on is, how about Caden Salter to Colorado? Is that
go there?
yeah.
That was the guy I was thinking of. Yep.
What, give us your thoughts, Jake, because you said it feels very Colorado. What do you mean?
It kind of fits, right? Like, a lot of people remember Caden Salter from 2 years ago, and he's really good. And I think he's got a pretty high ceiling, but he's also, I personally, I don't love his character. Not like I know him personally to really say that, but just on the field body language stuff and like some of the stuff he tweets is just offsetting to me. Like, the guy, do you guys remember when the App State floods happened and he tweeted like, "You're scared to play us" or something like that?
Yeah.
And then he didn't even back out on it. He like didn't even apologize. He tweeted again about something.
Double
and
down.
he just after the Jack State loss, he like tweeted at the fans, and he's just, I don't know. It's just off-putting. And he's kind of a turnover machine. He's really reckless with the football. And it's interesting because we're going to bring in Juju Lewis next year. From everything that I've seen on Twitter, which is that the majority of the fan base, probably not. I think most of them think Lewis is going to start, but I don't see it either. I think Lewis is really raw. He's reclassifying, so he's like 17 or something. So it's a good bridge option, but I also think there's a low floor to what Caden Salter could be. But on the other end, you go like portal commits. I can't remember the kid's name, but Dion got that Bama defensive lineman the other night.
Yep.
I think he's going to be a problem. If that defensive line can be good again this year, Colorado will be fine.
I was thinking low ceiling, high floor for Salter. Like, you're getting this, right? Like, you're not going to get superstar level. He's not going to, completely fall
He'll
apart.
win you 6 games no matter what.
He's mediocre.
Yeah. I don't think he's mediocre. I think he's
he's middle. That's middle, JP, right?
Yeah, I know. I figured that one.
No, we've decided mediocre's like less than middle. It's like not terrible, but like you're just.
Well, no, we can't switch after I got roasted for that. I did want to know, before we go into the previews and stuff like that, I did want to know we were talking Louisville and what Brom's been doing. 24 class ranked 13th in the ACC. Their 25 class currently ranks 15th in the ACC. So he's bringing in
recruiting.
Yes, high school recruiting. So he is focusing on the portal. That is his emphasis right now.
Yeah. You said 15th in the ACC.
Yes. Not nationally.
That doesn't seem sustainable.
They brought in, I think he brought in for the 25 class, 13 signees, all of them 3 stars. It's an Iowa class.
Because like you even see Dion moving into high school recruiting now, and maybe that's switched in his mind where initially he didn't think he was going to be there long term, where now he is. Maybe that's his approach, but I don't know. I don't know how you can sustain success with having a bottom
or to build
outside the top 10 in the ACC recruiting for sure.
Well, Dion more like he's all in on like the big prospects, like Lewis, Seton, but he doesn't get a ton. Like he's still. He's always going to be a
lineman's name that played a lot for him this year.
Jordan Seton
kid. He was
yep.
Yeah,
that's what you said, right? The 4-star.
Yeah.
No, didn't they have a defensive lineman that came in as a true freshman, play a lot this year too?
They could have. I can remember.
Maybe he was offensive line. I remember, but that was like you're saying, like it's hit or miss. It's swing big on those kids for Colorado most of the time. 4 or 5s. They're not taking just kids off the streets of Aurora, Colorado for 3 stars.
Here we are talking about what Colorado will look like on the field in 2025. We also have the Alamo Bowl left. That should be a fun matchup here on, I believe, New Year's Day, or it's New Year's Eve. One of the two, but we will preview that one when the time comes. What?
Well, we're talking Colorado. I see in your background there over your shoulder,
Yep.
Heisman this weekend, get snubbed. Any thoughts on that?
I didn't know which one you were talking about. Colorado's buried in the corner. I got a Colorado
Oh,
helmet back there.
No,
Too.
no, I was referring to the Boise State one.
Yeah, the biggest Heisman snub of all time. Probably. Unbelievable. Can you guys believe that bullshit?
The biggest
Yes,
of all time.
That feels
I think-
aggressive.
No,
Peyton
it doesn't. It's the
Manning.
biggest snub of all time. We're
Stu.
talking about the best player in college football, and the player who won it doesn't rank first in any category besides snaps played. What a joke! He doesn't rank first in anything. It's the best player in the country. We have a running back that's first in 12 different categories. It sounds like that running back's the Heisman Trophy winner, is the best player in the country. He
don't
put
know
a
if
team
it's-
on his back and carried them to a college football playoff bye. Every week, every team knew exactly what they were going to do. They were going to run the football with Achinchinti, and he still fucking did it. That's a Heisman Trophy winner. Every week, teams prepared for Devonta Smith, for Derrick Henry. These other Heisman Trophy winners, they did that for Achinchinti, but don't worry, we got a popularity contest, and now the whole talk of the town is this guy's girlfriend sucks. Not about anything about football, by the way. It's a joke. What a robbery. Achinchinti is the people's Heisman, and he's a play the fight song Heisman forever. That's my 2 cents.
I wasn't really mad about it.
Yeah, I wasn't
Right.
that upset about it. I mean, they were
Because
both really
you
good.
say you're bringing up stats and what he ranks, but
Yes, you have to be good statistically to be considered the best player in college
also has
football. No?
Travis Hunter was still
for
a
this team.
he was still
He
pretty
plays
good. I mean,
lockdown
Was he
corner.
the best?
Nobody challenges him. He's the best corner in the country, and there's not even a discussion to be had.
Will Johnson?
He's better.
Hmm.
I would take
That's
Travis
funny.
Hunter over Will Johnson. Like, that's fine. Like, that's a hell of a debate. This kid's literally locked down. Like, I understand there's highlights of him getting beat, but find me a DB who hasn't been beat once or twice.
he was a top 3 DB and probably a top 5 or 6 receiver in the country. So it's like, I know he wasn't number 1 in any singular position, and his stats weren't as good, but I mean, effectiveness on the field, and the Heisman's never been like a singular statistic award. A lot of the times it gets caught up with hype
If it
and
was-
things like that. And maybe it would be different if Genty wasn't on Boise State. I think you have a very good point there, which if I had a vote, I probably would have voted Genty. But I could see how Travis won. I don't really think it was that as much of a robbery.
I don't think
as
it's
some
I don't
people are
think it's
making
the
it seem.
biggest robbery in
It is.
Heisman
It's the
Trophy.
That's,
biggest
the, that's
snub.
the way
It's the
people are
biggest
making it
snub
seem
too.
on Twitter. People
Guys,
are kind of going. People are
Stu.
going crazy about it. Which
It-
biggest
as they
situation
should.
Heisman
It's
is
ridiculous.
The Dominican Sue is the biggest snub.
it was ridiculous, the coverage on it, that Travis Hunter was
That's a good
obviously
point,
going to
Jake.
win. But the way the points ended up and the way the voting actually ended, I thought that reflected pretty accurately. Like Genty was pretty close.
A lot
I
closer
just
than
know-
the odds speak. Said.
It's got to be the first ever Heisman Trophy winner to send the committee or the voters an ad campaign to vote for him. Probably ever. Usually you don't have to
No,
do that
you
when you're the best
remember
player in
Bo
the
Nix?
country.
Bo Nix had Times Square.
Yeah, he didn't win.
Doesn't matter.
This one worked.
Before the preseason, they had Bo leave, and they had it in Times Square. Oregon put up signs for the guy. He's
Have
not
you
Yeah,
the
seen
but
first
no,
Bo
one
in
to have
Denver?
it.
Maybe we
just
should've been
grand.
believing.
I'm saying this one was a Heisman Trophy
That's
trifold.
what it
pop-up
was. Look it
bullshit.
up. Bo Nix. Bo Nix.
Yes, it was
Heisman
Bo Leave.
campaign.
That's fine, but it wasn't sent to the committee where they posted a video like, oh, everybody knew what was happening. that
No,
night.
just in front of
Unfortunately.
9 million people in New York City.
God, it was bullshit. What Ashton GT? He just carried his team to the. Oh, God, let me ask you this, JT, because you mentioned he was a top 5, 6 receiver in the country. Name 3 other receivers on Colorado.
I do know the other one.
You
but
can
I'm
do
not
that,
gonna
right?
come to
Name 3 other Boise State players outside of their quarterback.
Can't do
You
that.
can't do it because he was that fucking good.
could.
He literally carried
know
his
you
team
could,
to
but
the playoffs.
Most people can't.
You can't. Travis Hunter had other valuable options to throw. LaJohntay Wester was almost equally as good as Travis Hunter at the wide receiver position this year for Colorado. He was
That's not
dominant
his fault,
back
though.
half
That's
of this
he
season.
plays on a receiving core.
Yeah,
That's
but if you
disgusting.
have other talent around you, it also frees you up some. Achinchinti had half of that, if not any of it, and still did what he did.
Well, you can't do half the talent around him because then people are going to be like, well, he played half the talent on a schedule because he played in Mountain West. Like you gotta you gotta give some, you gotta get some. You know, you gotta.
Troy Davis is
even
the
take-
biggest snub of Heisman.
That's
Genty
just not true.
Genty just didn't make enough tackles.
Sue.
this year,
It's
plain and
Sue.
simple.
It's
It's
the
Ndamukong
Dominican Sue was the biggest snub of all time. by the
Just
way.
Troy
didn't have
Davis,
enough tackles.
Brock Purdy.
And
It was-
Brock Purdy.
don't say it. You're going to start pissing people off.
Brock Purdy
JP's
just
gonna
throws
start
backwards
getting
INTs.
Brocktober.
They're
All
waiting for him
right.
to throw a ball backwards into.
Don't bring up the Heisman. We're already a half an hour in. Sorry. I'm never not going to get fired up about it. I love you, Ashton. All right. Well, GT.
Whoa.
Ashton, GT. Sorry,
Whoa.
JP. Sorry, JP. JP's fiance's name is Ashton. Apologies. Ashton GT. Love you.
No,
Love
no
you.
context. No context. Play the fight song.
Yeah, just that clip. Sorry. All right, let's go to the college football playoff. That's what you're here for. Let's preview all 4 matchups. Let's open it up with the Friday game. If you're joining us on YouTube for this clip, hit the like button to kick us off. Hit the subscribe button. We love you being here. But let's open it up with a very, very fun one in front of Touchdown Jesus. Indiana is in, and they are playing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who really felt like everybody wrote them off after the NIU game. They dismantled everybody else on their schedule to get here. Now they have a home game to kick off the 12-team playoff. Let's break this one down from the top. This one's Friday night, 7 p.m. on ABC, and they are a touchdown favorite. Jake, break it down for us.
In the words of JP, this one fires me up. I'm fired up to watch this one. I think this is the most intriguing game of the weekend. For Indiana, I think they have a tall task ahead of them personally. Now, some people know me as maybe a little more biased towards Notre Dame.
Yes.
But I think when you look towards Indiana, I think they really have to scout the USC film because the passing attack has an opportunity to get after this Notre Dame secondary. Now, people say, well, USC could have won that game had they not thrown those pick sixes. Well, they did, and that's kind of how the Notre Dame defense works. They have studs across the board, and that's kind of what they do. So that really doesn't make sense towards that argument. The Riley Leonard side of things, he's throwing the ball much better. I think the game plan, though, on Friday night is to rely on the run. Price, Love, Leonard. Those 3 have to get going, play smash mouth football. I lean Notre Dame because of the cold. I think I've seen it. Like I go back to, yes, Jordan.
You know they're in the same state, right?
I'm aware
So,
of that.
that's
But
a good
can
point,
you let me
JP.
make, can you let me make my argument?
I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Cut me off there. I was going to say it reminds me of the Iowa State K-State game in the fact that both teams from the Midwest, Indiana's a pass-heavy team, Notre Dame's a run-heavy team. I think in the cold, you're definitely going to be favored more towards keeping it on the ground, playing smash mouth. It's when it's that cold, receivers' hands, like throwing the ball as hard as you do, I think it's just tougher to throw it through the air. And that's where I think Notre Dame actually does take advantage of this. And yeah, a little known fact, I do know that Indiana and Notre Dame are both in the same state. So I appreciate you wondering those.
I just wanted to make sure you understood that, Jacob. Some people don't know geography.
What a fun one this is going to be. I hope it snows. I just do. I don't know if it's supposed to or if it's going to, but just to get that college football feel to it. But what a fun matchup. And what sticks out to me is you're looking at the number 2 scoring offense in college football in the Hoosiers of Indiana and the number 3 scoring defense of Notre Dame, who's only giving up 13 points a game. It's an elite group. They gotten banged up a little bit this season, but that's the storyline. Is Curtis Rourke, can Ellison, can Lott get going on the ground to establish this game in a colder weather game, which I'm sure they'll be prepared for. But what's the pace going to be? Are we going to get the RPO, pass heavy, get the ball out to Surratt, Indiana, or are we going to get them to try and slow it down against a really, really good Notre Dame defense? So if Indiana is going to do it, they're going to have to get the ground game going. So look for Lawton, look for Ellison to establish that game early, and that's how they're going to have to play it because we've seen Riley Leonard have some pass struggles throughout the season. He picked it up on the back half. They put up a bunch of points. But we've seen the bad side of Notre Dame's offense. And outside of the Ohio State game, we haven't really seen a terrible side of this Indiana offense. So if they can get something going, I look for a close club matchup. What do you think? What are you thinking that's sticking out to you, Jake? I saw the head tilt. Look like a dog.
I don't know about, I wouldn't say terrible. We haven't seen a terrible side of this offense, but a Michigan and Ohio State game, I wouldn't call it good either.
I said Ohio State. I gave Ohio State as a bad side of their offense, not a terrible side. I mean, terrible is, what Notre Dame's offense looked like against Northern Illinois. We haven't seen that drastic of a game. So it just depends. I think this is the best team Notre Dame's played to be honest with you. And it's as expected in the college football playoff. But even the ranked games that they got their wins in are not going to equal up to the talent they're about to see this weekend. So I like the Hoosiers to stay competitive. I like their experience on the outside, the talent and experience of their quarterback that's going to be put on display to the world again. And him getting banged up doesn't really scare me too much because of the injury it was. So I like the Hoosiers in this spot against the number. But what scares me is how good that Notre Dame defense is. What do you think, JP?
Yeah. What does Indiana do well defensively? They get after the quarterback, right? And I think that's something that we can really look at what Riley Leonard has been doing versus, when he struggled, what he looked like. If Indiana could find a way to get after him against a good offensive line and make him uncomfortable and not necessarily just let him out of the pocket and use his legs a ton. I'm talking like concealed pressure, keeps him in the pocket, makes him like uncomfortable to get rid of the football type stuff. That is going to change a lot. And I think on the flip side, you can make Rourke uncomfortable. You watched Michigan do it, good defensive line. Watched Ohio State do it, good defensive line. Notre Dame, great defensive line. And I think there's an opportunity for both of them to really just disrupt everything the offenses want to do on the other side. I think one thing to know with this game, and it kind of came to me like listening to stuff throughout the day and then throughout the week before this game, is our last real thought of Indiana is a bad one. Our last real thought of Notre Dame is like top tier stuff. So I think there's a little bit of a skewed into what we're getting in these teams. And I understand, if we're going to compare Indiana, on their faults against a Michigan team and an Ohio State team, I think you have to look at how similar Notre Dame is to them in some certain spots, but you also have to understand that good teams struggle against other good teams sometimes. That's just a fact. You watched Notre Dame do it at A&M. You watched Notre Dame
Ohio State.
Like Notre Dame has done it with other, like it's just how it works. So I think just if you're looking at this game and you're wanting to bet it or watch it, don't just think Indiana played Ohio State, Notre Dame has been blowing everybody out. Really step back and look at this game, because I do think they both have matchup nightmares for the other one in certain ways. I think there's a lot of weapons like USC had for Indiana on the outside to really make things happen. And I am confident that they stay within that number two. Like I really do. I think it's going to be close. I think I think Indiana's got to hit one or two big ones just based on the yards per play and the way they throw the football. We can't just dink and dunk like an Oregon does or other schools. They'll have to hit a couple big ones, but I am confident they stay within the number just based on, we're on the road in state in a playoff game. No one thought you'd be here, backs against the wall, last showing stunk, whatever, that kind of thing.
I honestly think it's going to benefit Indiana here for what happened against Ohio State to happen because of the attitude Cignetti brings to that group. Just to have them in another situation, go on the road in an environment like this, in a stage like this, like just his attitude and the way he carries that team and program that's basically revitalized them to this college football playoff berth is a benefit to the Hoosiers, in my opinion. What do you think, JT? Break down this one for us.
Yeah, for me, I was looking at it through the standpoint of how are both of these teams going to win? And with Notre Dame, it's obvious. December football, home night game, playoff game against kind of a lesser brand opponent. They're going to try to pound the rock and run the ball, which they've done really successfully all year and against pretty much every team they've played all year, except for that Northern Illinois loss they suffered. And if you look at it at Indiana, what's going to be your key to winning is slowing down that rushing attack for Notre Dame. And luckily for them, they actually have like the number one rush defense in the country, allowing like 2.6 yards per rush and only 76 rush yards per game. And if they could translate that into this, I think that's a really scary spot for Notre Dame, because they've got like their passing offense isn't even in the top 100 with Riley Leonard. I don't really think in this cold environment that we've talked about, we're like, how is Indiana going to be able to throw the ball around? Well, what if Indiana's rush defense is as good as we think and they slow down that Notre Dame offense and they're forced to pass? I think that's a really dangerous spot for Notre Dame. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys, where I definitely think Indiana can cover these 7 points.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point, that if Notre Dame gets forced into a spot where they have to throw it a ton, because like Riley Leonard's been better, Jake, like you've made this point, and like it's not really gotten the same publicity as when he was at Duke, when he was playing well. But his completion percentage isn't high. Like it sits low 60s. It's not like he's lighting the world on fire, high percentage balls. Like he's made some mistakes and he's, still learning to be a passer. They've just adapted to him better, I feel like, as the years gone on.
And I think
he's
another
also
point to note, go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
I was just to say, you brought about the pressure stuff with Indiana. I mean, statistically, nobody's better at evading pressure than Riley Leonard going back to Duke. So I think
That's fair.
favors Notre Dame as well.
Yeah. It favors Notre Dame. Competition based, though. Who's he evading? Right? Like, I think that hinders Notre Dame from who they've played. If you're going to talk about Ashton Tinty and basically rip the Heisman out of his hands because of who he played, we got to talk about who Notre Dame played. Why their statistics may be inflated.
You could say the exact same thing about Indiana. I mean, Indiana's worse with their strength of schedule. So
no. I actually just listened to our Week 13 preview again today, and I quote for quote heard Jake say, you heard Cignetti say every team they played was 500 or better. I mean, when they played Nebraska, they were 5-1. So caught you in a lie there, Jake. Nice try though. But the Hoosiers are. I was
telling you his argument. That wasn't my argument.
No. Even playing field, no one's angry. I just want to make one final point in terms of the weather. I think it's another point of note. We talked about the pressure that Indiana can create on Notre Dame. If they get them in spots in this game late where they have to kick field goals, Notre Dame's not very good at it. They only make 44% of their field goals on the entire season. So that could come into play, especially in an Indiana game this late in the year. So let's keep an eye on that. It kind of came into play last week with Ohio State and Michigan, or 2 weeks ago that was. So we will see what happens there. Let's finalize this round table style, score predictions, who wins, who covers the number, who's the difference maker. JP, I'm going to make you go first.
24-20 Notre Dame. It's going to be, I don't know who to give. I think it's just going to be Notre Dame being Notre Dame. Nobody really stands out above the others. If something happens, it's going to be a late turnover that wins them a football game or something. But I like Indiana to be in this the whole time.
All right. I'm going to jump on the back with you, but I'm going to take Indiana, the Hoosiers, outright on the road here. I think we get a not stunned, but a little bit of a slow start from a Notre Dame team playing the best team they've played in a long time, and it's going to hurt them and be too much because Indiana's played good teams towards the end of their season. Notre Dame didn't do that as much outside of USC. Right. Well, Purdue is in there, but talk about Ohio State. All their good games are back after.
I'm just giving you shit because it was the last week of the year. So it's just funny.
Yes, Purdue is all right. Anyway, don't get me going on Purdue. But I like the Hoosiers outright. 21-17 on the road in this spot. I think it comes down. Notre Dame misses a couple kicks. I like Rourke's experience and the fit in that scheme, as I've said all year. So I like the Hoosiers outright to take the first round upset against the Irish. What do you think, Jake? By the way, player of the game, and it goes Tyson Lawton, Indiana, running game.
Well, we haven't even mentioned the best player in this game yet, and that's Jeremiah Love.
Yes.
To be the way he's been playing the last 5 weeks, he's a top 5 player in college football for me. Just how good he's going to be, and he's going to be a Heisman front runner next year, I think. That all being said, I think Notre Dame handles it well, running the football. 27-17, Notre Dame wins, covers, all the above.
All right, JT, round it out. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, for me, if you look at the 2 games where Indiana struggled, that Michigan and Ohio State, yes, they struggled, but they were still able to slow down the run game of both of those teams. And Ohio State, it still bit them in the ass. But I think if Indiana can slow down the rushing attack of this Notre Dame team, I think they could be in a lot of trouble. So I have got Indiana winning this one 24-23.
All right, there it is. That is the first game of the college football playoff first round on Friday night. If you're in the YouTube video clip right now, drop your score prediction below in the comments. If you hit it on the nose, we'll send you a free cap from our partner at No Rivals. We're running that for all 4 games tonight, so make sure you check out all 4 clips and drop a score prediction in the comments. Let us know who you're cheering for. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your viewing, but that is game number 1 on Friday night. We broke it down from the top. Let's move it down the line. Let's go to Saturday, the triple header. Let's go with the one that kicks it off. This one should be pretty interesting. A lot of energy. Let's head to Happy Valley. Let's talk SMU. Let's talk Penn State. But before we go to the breakdown, let's talk shopnorivals.com. Our good partners over at No Rivals are dropping new teams even without noticing me first. And it hurts a little bit, but Syracuse is live on there now. UNLV is live on there right now. A few teams have popped in overnight, including a bunch of new styles on our Iowa Hawkeyes, JP. So give those a look today at shopnorivals.com. And when you find the one you love, check out and use the code PTFS for free shipping on your order, delivered to your house. No minimums, free shipping on us for using code PTFS. Shopnorivals.com today. All right, now let's break this one down. This one's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of fun. SMU, the ACC runner-up, Penn State, the Big Ten runner-up, the battle of the runner-ups. Who's it going to go to? JP, you break this one down for us.
Yeah, looking at this matchup and kind of how everything laid out, I think this is one of those draws for SMU that they probably don't love just based on the type of team that Penn State is. On the other side, if I'm trying to compare SMU to somebody that's been on Penn State's schedule, I'm thinking it's more of a USC with a better defense, right? They have the ability on the outside to make plays receiver-wise. Kevin Jennings has been a really efficient quarterback. They have a good run game. And honestly, like the defense doesn't get the love that it deserves. Like it was put in tough spots last week in that ACC title game. They were clamps in the second half and played great. Looking at what Penn State did in the Big Ten title game, I mean, I said that I was like, if you're Penn State, outside of winning that game, could you feel much better about where you are offensively? I know it hurts defensively to give up numbers like that, but Oregon's done that to everybody. So I think that's one spot to really worry about here is SMU's defense on the back end. And they've stopped the run well when they've played teams, but they haven't been challenged with a run game like this with a two-headed monster in the backfield and an efficient scheme that Kittle Nicky runs for Penn State, right? So that's a tough part for me there. Penn State and Aller, like Aller's been good, but when he's under pressure, he hasn't been great. And that's what SMU does is just pressure. They consistently are bringing 5-6 guys. They're making sure they get to the quarterback and change drives, right? We're getting them behind the sticks instead of letting guys go 70, 80-yard drives on 15 plays. For the flip side of things, I think Kevin Jennings has a chance here. If that offensive line for SMU can keep him upright. Last week, they really struggled with that in the first half. You know, the ball was in his hands too many times or too late into a play clock, that kind of thing. If they can get the ball in and out of his hands, I think they have a chance with the weapons on the outside to move the football. I'm worried that the run game kind of won't get going the same way it has in other games, right? Like they're going to have to throw it to open up the run game in this situation. And that is a worrisome spot with this Penn State team. It's not a matchup I love for SMU by any means, but I do think there's a real line here that they can stay in this thing and have a shot to win it late. If they don't absolute shoot themselves in the foot 17 times in that first half last week, they win that game, and I think they win it handily. I mean, you can't make up the stuff they were doing to themselves last week. And Clemson benefited from it every time. And then when they played head-to-head football in the second half and it was clean on both sides, SMU kind of ran away from it and then give up a kick return with no time left and set up a field goal, just bad stuff. I don't expect that to happen again, but I don't like this matchup as much as I do for SMU, as I did with Clemson last week. So Penn State here is in a good spot. I think they feel really good about themselves, as they should. I think that their run game is really going to have a chance to be showcased in this matchup.
All right. Interesting coming from the guy in the SMU gear. What do you think on this matchup, Jake? Break it down for us.
Feels like SMU has nothing to lose, right? All of the pressure was on them to, stay competitive and just keep it close or just go out there and win the ACC title last week in order to get your shot at the college football playoff. Well, now you did. And basically, JP said it, you had the worst start you've had basically all year in the first half, and then you kind of battle back and make it a game. But the way they responded showed me a lot of what could happen in this football game on Saturday. They outgained Clemson by 100 yards. They had 8 more first downs. They won the football game statistically. Now that obviously doesn't pay dividends in the result all the time, but I think it's something to build off of. And you go into Happy Valley with a chip on your shoulder, and basically, like I said, you got nothing to lose. And I think that's dangerous with a quarterback like Kevin Jennings, who can go out there and make plays. I think JP's right. I think they're going to struggle to run the football. So he's going to have a game like he did in that second half versus Clemson. If it was encouraging to me also that Penn State can get into shootouts if for some reason SMU goes out there and plays out of their minds offensively, but it has to start with Allen and Singleton running the football. I think they both rushed for over 100 yards against Oregon last week. Not just one. I do think it's going to take 2, especially without Pribula, because now SMU just focuses all on Drew Aller. Aller's asked to make a little more of playmaking ability inside the red zone and things like that. That it's going to be all on his shoulders now. Pribula is not there to help him out and save him. So the running backs are going to have to help Aller out as well.
I think you both made great points on Penn State's running backs. I think if you look at the matchups on paper, you look at SMU's defense and what they've done against the run this year, and it's super impressive. Under 3 yards a carry, but on the other side, Penn State's offensive attack over 5 yards a carry, almost 5.5 yards per carry. That's just a credit to their elite backfield. I think that's the matchup to watch. That was the first note I had is, can SMU slow down the run game enough? With dual backs, that hurts. That hurts their chances to do so. But the point Jake just made is very good. Pribula being out makes it a definite one-dimensional look unless they run out a wildcat look, because Aller's not going to do it with his legs. He has the ability to move a little bit, but he's not going to make the impact Bo would have. So it definitely gives an upper hand to the SMU defense to take advantage of it. We mentioned it last game where it was 2 in-state teams, but we got to mention it this game. The weather's definitely going to be impact. It was 72 degrees today in Dallas, and that's where SMU is practicing. They're not going to be able to match the noise that they're going to experience up there. I've seen Happy Valley already have snow on the ground that they've had to push off the field. So if they slow this game down, it gets into a rushing battle, you got to give the upper hand to Penn State. I don't love the matchup for SMU either here, JP. So I like the Nittany Lions because of the situation and where the game is played mostly. What do you think, JT? What's your breakdown of this one?
I'm glad you brought up SMU's run defense, Parks, because as good as Penn State's rushing offense has been, Penn State is top 3 in the country in opponents' yards per rush and top 10 in yards per game. So I don't really think it's going to be a situation where Penn State just runs all over SMU. And it's kind of like the Indiana-Notre Dame game that we were talking about, where if you get your best strength taken away, are you versatile enough in other facets to figure it out? And in this case, I do think Penn State is. I mean, with Tyler Warren and Drew Aller this year, they've been a problem for a lot of teams they've been playing. And as much as I like Kevin Jennings and this SMU offense, they're very versatile in their own right with having multiple receivers and targets. I don't think they have a single receiver over 500 yards this season. And you can look at that as a strength or a weakness, but I see it as a strength in this matchup because it's difficult to prepare for, and we've seen them play in difficult scenarios coming back in that ACC championship. But if they get down in a situation like this where it's on the road and in a cold environment, not on a neutral site, I don't really think they'll be able to rely on Jennings to make the comeback that he did against Clemson. So I think they could keep it close, but I have a hard time seeing them pull the outright upset over Penn State.
All right, there it is. That's a full breakdown. Let's go round table style score predictions. Who wins, who covers, who's the difference maker? Jake, you go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to put my trust in Kevin Jennings. This feels like a lot of pressure on Penn State. You get the home game, James Franklin, 12-team playoff. This is what you're built for. Some people have this as their dark horse for a national championship contender in this format. So I think SMU comes out firing. They come up just short. I'll go 34-27 Penn State, but SMU covers.
All right. When I look at the backfields in this one, I got to give the upper hand to Penn State. Like I mentioned in my preview, weather, huge factor. I think Penn State can do enough, keep their offense on the field, keep Kevin Jennings and his explosiveness off the field to just outlast this SMU team. I like him at home. The whiteout's going to be nuts in the cold weather. Just a great spot for Penn State and James Franklin to finally get a statement win to get the world and college football media off his back. So I like the Nittany Lions to win the game. The number's a greasy little spot. So I could see the offensive talent do enough to stay within a touchdown or add a touchdown. But I like Penn State to win the game. And if they do, I think the difference maker is going to be Singleton. What do you think, JP?
I was going to go 31-24 Penn State here. I think they stay within the number, but I am worried that this gets a little bit late, and as the game goes, they get a little desperate and try some things. It doesn't work out that way. That could end up in a double-digit win for Penn State. But I just think you can't play as poor as you did last week twice in a row. So I'll take SMU, and I've been backing them all year with how I think they are talented and one of the better teams in the country deserve this spot. So I can't just jump off that train now and be out on it.
And it's of note if they do start that way again and get fall behind like that and on the road in this spot against this Penn State defense, it's going to be even tougher to come back like they did against Clemson. JT, give us your score prediction to wrap it all up.
Yes, sir. I do think that both these defenses are going to do a really good job of stopping the run, which I think could end up in a lower scoring game for these two teams, which you think less running would be more passing, so more points. But I think both these teams are going to try to run the ball, so it's going to end up with the defenses showing up, it's going to be a little lower scoring. But I do like Penn State's versatility over SMU's they're just a little more versatile on offense, have a little more depth. So I still have them pulling it out. I've got Penn State 28, SMU 24.
All right, there it is. Penn State, the group pick to win the game. SMU, a couple of us picked to cover. That one should be very fun. Check that one out on TNT. Scorebug alert. First time we're going to see the scorebug over on TNT and the announcers over there.
How many people do you think this will be their first time watching a college football game on TNT this year? I guess were their games on TBS? TNT actually never had.
Yeah, TNT. This is the first one I can remember. The CW.
I'm pretty sure this is going to be. Pretty sure this could be everybody's first game.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking TBS because I watched some TBS this year. TBS
and the CW.
Oh, the same network.
It's the same network, but very different. This is NBA Thursday Network for all you people.
Yeah,
out there
I was gonna say,
rattle it off the top of your head.
Is Shaq doing the Shaq doing the game? Shaq
I don't know who's calling it, but
Shaq's going to show up and start talking Auburn.
He will.
I'm pretty sure if it's the same crew, at least for the post and pregame show, I think it's like Champ Bailey. I cannot remember who else is on it. It's definitely interesting. They're not doing ESPN announcers for their TNT's hiring their own guys, right?
I would assume they're going to use their own guys, like a Kenny Albert or something like that. That would be my assumption, but we'll see how it goes. I'm more interested in the presentation. New Scorebug. I wonder if they're going to use it universally because we got both networks in action, ABC and TNT. TNT has back-to-back ones, so we'll talk about it next. But this one should be very fun. Drop your score predictions below in the comments for a chance to win a free No Rivals cap from our partner at No Rivals on us. You pick the hat. We ship it to you. So drop that score prediction today. That's game 2 of the college football playoff 12-team first round. Let's go to the next one. This next one, I'm making JT lead us off on this one, so be ready. But let's talk Clemson and Texas in Austin. This one's also on TNT at 3 p.m. Central, God's time zone. DKR should be a fun atmosphere. Clemson, the ACC champion, gets their way in with a 12 seed. Texas, the SEC runner-up as the 5 seed. Texas is a double-digit favorite in this one over Dabo's Tigers. Break it down for us, JT.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see Clemson and Dabo get into this game. That ACC championship was a great game to watch, and I'm just glad to. I mean, some people may think differently, but I was glad to see Alabama not get in there, just to see a new face and spice things up a little bit. But I think Texas's defense is going to be a really big problem for Clemson in this matchup, and you can see it by the spread. As unconfident as I am in Texas's offense, I don't really think people have really come around to think of them as a defensive team yet. But right now they rank nationally first in opponents' yards per play, second in opponents' yards per game, and second in opponents' points per game. And I just don't really think this is a very good situation for Clemson's offense to have a lot of success. So I really think that's going to be the moral of the story here. It could look very similar to this Texas A&M game where Texas doesn't need to be too flashy on offense and they can just control it with their defense.
All right, I like that breakdown. What do you think, Jake? Let's go to Jake. Let's make brother versus brother here. And if Jake's on the other side, I don't expect him to be. And I think everybody's going to be heavy on Texas.
I don't know. I don't know if I trust Texas's offense right now. How much Arch Manning are we going to see? Do we see any Arch Manning? I got to imagine you do, just because of the lack of explosive plays and success rate that you had against Georgia. And it just wasn't there. You're playing a backup quarterback and you had an opportunity to win that football game and it didn't happen for you. But for Clemson too, and their 3 losses, I think they've shown some pretty glaring issues, like the explosive plays they give up versus Louisville, finishing drives, turnovers against South Carolina, and the physicality against Georgia was outmatched. And you've seen a team like Georgia, and Texas is just about as similar as Georgia can get, which really has me worried. But there's part of me that just thinks this Clemson defense kind of just bows up here and has not an all-time performance, but like punches Texas in the mouth a little bit enough to at least give this Clemson offense a shot. We'll see if they can take advantage of it. I tend to think they won't because the Texas defense has been just as good.
That's where I was going to go with it. Is the Texas defense has been stout all season, even against elite talent throughout the SEC schedule. but they haven't played that one big game, right? We talk about strength of schedule on this show all the time. Texas' strength of schedule doesn't jump off the page to you. Neither does Clemson's. They kind of ran up the score early in the season in some of those matchups after their opening game loss. But if you look at this Clemson offense, what do they do well? They convert on third down extremely well within the country realm. I mean, they're top 30 in the country when it comes to converting on third down. That's why I think it's so important in these games to get the home field advantage, whether or not you can play your music or all the other bullshit the committee's doing. This Texas defense is elite. So I like them, who are only letting up 30% of third down conversions against this Texas defense, which is ranked 6th in the country, to stop the Clemson offense enough to where I don't really care how many points Texas scores. I think 13 to 15 can be enough. I think Texas is going to have Clemson in shambles all day. I think the atmosphere is going to be the best it's ever been, similar to the Georgia style, but there's not enough Georgia talent on this Clemson offense to put up 30 points like that team did. So I like the Longhorns here. I just think their defense is too much for Klubnik to handle. And he's going to throw a couple picks too. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick with mine. I have I gotta tell you which one it is, but I have in the betting segment, I have this game as one of my bets here. There is a real opportunity for Clemson to stay in it if Ewers struggles and just makes a couple of poor decisions. But I think they're less likely to put him in positions where he has to worry. I'm not really thinking that Clemson showed that they can get beat by good talent on the outside last week. And there's not a lot of teams in the country that have it like Texas does on the outside and in the backfield. So I'm confident that Texas is going to get better on offense, and I'm not sure they're going to show everything and throw the world at it. I understand it's a playoff game and they'll do everything they can to win, but I don't think they're going to need to go deep into their bag for this one to really make sure they win it. Clemson has a chance to disrupt things defensively. I'm worried about Klubnik when his legs aren't, useful and he's staying contained within the pocket and he can't just run around and make plays and scramble for 30. What does that really do? Is Brian Wesco going to be able to get away from these Texas DBs? Are the Clemson receivers good enough to really bail him out? And I'm just not sure if they are at this moment in time.
All right, let's do it round table style. Who wins? Who covers? Who's the difference maker? JT, lead it off.
Yeah, I think Clemson this year, if you look at their stat profile, it's pretty unimpressive on both sides of the ball until you look at their turnover stats, which they've been an absolute monster this year. And as far as turnover percentage goes, as far as they don't really turn the ball over and they turn you over a lot. So if they can continue to have that success, I mean, that's the only way I can really see them getting into this game. But I don't really see Texas playing outside of themselves in a situation that'll get them into turnovers. I think this is going to be the best defense Clemson has seen all season. So I don't really see it getting that out of hand, but I do think Texas is going to end up winning probably around a score of 24-10.
All right. I like that. I kind of see them in a similar fashion. I think we talked about SMU in a preview beforehand, and we talked about the struggles they had early in that ACC title game and how much that benefited Clemson. If they don't get that out of their opponent, what does that Clemson offense do? They slowed down quite a bit when they weren't getting the ball on the 30-yard line. If you put them in that situation back on their own 20, all of a sudden you got to face this Texas defense, which is double, if not at least as good in every facet on that SMU defense. So I think the Clemson defense is going to be, our Clemson offense is going to be way too staggered to stay in this one. I like Texas to roll in this spot at home. I think it's going to be like a 27-10, 27 level game, and Texas covers the number. I think difference maker is going to be Quinn Ewers, a couple touchdown passes, or somebody on the defense who picks off Klubnik a couple times. What do you think, Jake?
Glad, Justin, you gave us the turnover stat, because Ewers has had just a couple of poor turnovers these last two games against A&M, against Georgia. I think Clemson makes it ugly enough to stay within this game. I'll have them slightly covering, but I think Texas pulls it out 21-10.
It is a lot of points for a playoff game.
That is a lot of points. But all right, JP, wrap it up for us. Who wins? Who covers? Who's the difference maker?
I got 31-13 Texas here. I understand that this is a big spread for a playoff game, but this isn't an NFL playoff game. This is college football. We see blowouts all the time. So
right.
This is why we expanded the playoff, right? So teams that like Clemson can have a shot to win a national title.
This is the exact spot
Maybe
where the
they'll clip
expects
that
there to be a
after they
blowout
win this
too.
game, and I'll get laughed at, but I'll take my chances.
You're going to get clipped on the recap video all these schools are doing. Hopefully, put us on there. Shout us out. But all right, that is Clemson and Texas. Drop your score prediction below. Who wins and why? And for a chance to win a free No Rivals cap, shop norivals.com today. Use the code PTFS at checkout if you can't wait to get your free cap. But drop your score prediction. If you hit it on the nose, then we will send you a free cap. I'm going to read this comment as I'm actively
Guy
going.
GA.
Yeah, our
he's got a
boy.
question. We got to answer this for him.
Okay, you give him an answer, Jake.
So if you're listening to us on Spotify, GA says on YouTube, if UT makes the Cotton Bowl, I'm obligated to buy my wife tickets. Do you think I should just buy them now before the prices skyrocket more? Well, I mean, if you buy them now, you get Clemson, Arizona State. You get to go to. You take her out somewhere nice to eat in Dallas and make a weekend.
Probably would have been cheaper just to take her to this game. To be honest with you,
I gotta imagine those prices are astronomical anyway, right?
Yeah,
they're going to be high
BYU
whether there's a billion.
Take it from
tickets
BYU fans. Don't buy the tickets early. You're gonna be spending a bunch of money anyways. I feel like you might as well want the guarantee of the game happening, until you spend a bunch of money in the game, in the chance of the game
Gotta
not
be able to
happening.
resell those.
Either way, we know our boy GA is a Husker fan, so you either better be in Sun Devil gear or no matter what, be in Sun Devil gear. In my opinion, that's just our de facto
Well, let me
team here.
let me look it up quick. I would imagine they got to be already high because Texas thinks they're winning this one, right? Like there's no doubt.
I think they're just
doesn't
high because it's a neutral site bowl game, and whether there's 10,000 available tickets or 10, they're going to ramp the price up.
I
pair of two.
Go ahead.
A pair of 2 tickets. What do you think the lowest is on? We're not going to shout these guys out because they're not sponsoring us.
At
$7
Pair of 2 tickets for the Cotton Bowl.
600. Wait together.
I think $700. Oh, for $700 each, $1,400.
No, actually, way less. What do you think the singular ticket costs? One ticket, but they're paired as door. Yeah, 638 divided by 2. What is that?
Is that with the bullshit fees?
319. No, that's with fees. This website I use has fees. 319 is the lowest ticket you can get right now.
Yeah, I'd probably just cop those right now, GA. I would definitely think they could go higher than that. I thought they would be higher than that. So I would just cop those right now.
That's the Cotton Bowl, Arizona State? They're going back to or is the Cotton Bowl in the semifinal?
I'm not sure.
I mean, that is the semifinal.
No, it's not. I thought quarterfinal.
Yeah, the quarterfinal next week versus Arizona State. I don't think that's at the Cotton Bowl, is it?
It's not at the Cotton Bowl. It's just the Goodyear Cotton Bowl.
It's the Cotton Bowl. It's in Dallas. I'm saying it's at a different site. I'm saying the Arizona State game is going to be.
Hold on, I got it in front of me. The Cotton Bowl is the semifinal.
Yeah. So what's Arizona
Cotton Bowl
State?
and Orange Bowl are the semifinals.
So who's Arizona State? Where's Texas going if they play Arizona State?
Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
Atlanta. So Atlanta.
So he's asking, does he think they're getting through Arizona State and Clemson? Oh,
okay.
Wow.
No, giving it away early. Don't give it away early. No early previews, GA. You know you got to be back next week anyway. We know you will be, but we got to break down Arizona State if this is the matchup.
Wow,
for sure.
He knows this is a Big 12 show, so they got no chance at this point. I don't care if they're favored by 14 points.
We love the Big 12. GA loves the Big 12. Bowl games at all? Those quarterfinal bowl games are gonna be awesome because Arizona State's got the winner in the Peach Bowl. Oregon's gonna be in the Rose Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl's the Boise State winner, and then Georgia's already in the Sugar Bowl
and
against
Fiesta, 2 things.
Feed me all the haters that are against Arizona State and Boise. Feed me all of them. It's going to be an elite week for college football media to get their dicks kicked in. That's the plan. But all right, that is Clemson and Texas. Drop those score predictions. We appreciate you being here, but let's go to the last one. Definitely last but not least. Let's talk Tennessee. Let's talk Ohio State and Columbus. This one is going to be must-see television over back on ABC. A night game in Columbus. Going to be colder weather, of course. The Bucks are 7.5-point favorites against Nico Imaliava and the Vols. Break this one down for us, Jake.
Yeah. When was the last time we saw Ohio State? It's now been basically a month since the Michigan game. My first question is just like, what is the vibe in the stadium? Now, I know this is probably the biggest game of the weekend, Saturday night, prime time. All eyes are going to be on it, and they're doing like this whole Scarlet thing with the lights. But aren't we just like First possession, Tennessee goes down and scores. Ohio State goes 3 and out. Just boos right away in the first quarter. I don't know. I think that Ohio State, talent-wise, they are just as talented as anybody else in college football right now from top to bottom. But I think they'd almost benefit playing somewhere else at this point. And maybe you put a clown nose on my face next week when you can clip this quote. But I'm not so sure. And if you get into the football stuff, I don't think Ohio State's seen anybody as physical as Tennessee has this year. Now, I know Oregon's a really good football team, fast, athletic, but physicality on the defensive and offensive line, there's nobody better than Tennessee right now. And they're one of the most underrated teams in all of college football, in my opinion. But offensively, for them, it's got to be Dylan Sampson Hall of Fame game. Because I don't see Nico going out there throwing for 300 plus yards on this defense. I don't see it. So Sampson's going to have an elite game.
Yeah, I think that's
you see
really
Sampson running all over that Ohio State defense.
If he can get to, I think he can get to 100 yards all over. Not sure. 100 yards on 20, 25 carries. Sure. And maybe that's what they're going to have to do. Play a little slower style. Now I know Ohio State kind of plays the slower game as well, but I think Tennessee can still do like ball control stuff and play physical football. This team isn't like, it's not old Josh Heupel high flying offense anymore. Like, remember the Oklahoma game, third week of the year? Granted, Oklahoma was way better in our eyes at the time, but we're like, wow, this Tennessee team can just play hard-nosed football, play slow too. I think that's going to benefit them.
I think that they're kind of almost going to have to do that to find themselves in a good spot. I think this Ohio State defense, if we're going to give Texas their flowers, you got to give Ohio State their flowers throughout the entire season. Number one scoring defense in college football. They haven't given up 17 points more than twice in the last 4 or 5 years. It's been an elite group, and I can expect them to continue to do so. But on the other side, on Tennessee's offense, how many times have we had the conversation this year where we talk about Imaliaba's struggles, where he doesn't make the throws consistently downfield, especially in the back half of their season? We thought it was the opposite side of the story when we kicked off this season. They were putting up 70, 80 points a game. Then it really slowed down in that Oklahoma game, which Jake mentioned, and he's kind of struggled ever since, especially with the deep ball. If they make him one-dimensional and Ohio State can stop the run and make Nico throw, you got to think advantage with that secondary in the back half of Ohio State. Igbinosun, Denzel Burke, Caleb Downs, like the players like that against the outside of Tennessee just gives Ohio State that upper hand. That's why the line is where it is. The atmosphere, the weather, I don't know if that will play as big as a factor as it would in Happy Valley, but something here tells me this Ohio State defense is going to rise to the occasion. Maybe the offensive struggles would come from Ohio State as well, though. I think we've seen games where Ohio State's offense has been off. Yes, Michigan, even Nebraska, they didn't finish a few drives earlier in the season. So what version of Will Howard are we going to get? Jake, you talk about it all the time, but Will Howard isn't, the breaker that they made him seem to be in comparison to Kyle McCord, who got significant Heisman votes, by the way. But which version are we going to get? Are we going to get the Will Howard that turns the ball over a few times to a really good Tennessee defense, or he gets sacked or pressured a few times against a really good Tennessee defensive front, one of the best players in the country? So that's where I see this matchup, is which defense can rise to the occasion. To me, Ohio State does in this spot. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I think if you're expecting Tennessee to be within this number and have a real shot to win this game, then you are putting your money on Nico hitting the open throws. And that's me saying there have been plenty of people open that need to be hit in stride in this scheme, and he just hasn't done that. So if you're wanting Tennessee plus that number, I think that's what you're leaning. Whether the run game's good or not, you have to understand that has to hit, and you can't become one-dimensional in this spot on the road with a young quarterback. Ohio State-wise, I kind of think the Michigan game was an anomaly. I just think they were not in the right mindset. Something was off from where, they came into that week, into that Saturday, maybe heads a little bit too big, thinking they were going to do something that, wasn't really their strength, and found out the hard way what that was like. So I do kind of expect them to go back to what they've been doing and Chip Kelly dial some things up, and be prepared to go at a Tennessee defense who's been really good this year and has seen teams like Ohio State, right? So I am confident in that. What I'm not confident in is probably that Will Howard aspect of things. It's, are you going to be lights out? Are you going to be good enough with no turnovers to make sure that you stay in control of this thing, right? In the driver's seat of the game the whole time? Because if they get onto their heels and they got to beg him to go do something that he's, not used to doing and hasn't had to do a ton, I worry about that. But I think I worry about Nico more. If he's not hitting open throws, he gets in his head. They feel one dimensional. Because Heupel, I really think Heupel looked at that Oregon Ohio State film and it's like, look what Oregon's doing and finding ways to get these guys open. Now, Tennessee's receiving core is not Oregon's, obviously, but the scheme is there and the idea of getting people open. His whole scheme is predicated on making matchups and schemes, things wide open for a quarterback to make easy passes. I think he knows what he wants to attack on that Ohio State team.
I'm also wondering, are we going to see Nico use his legs a lot more in this game? That's one thing that stuck out to me in terms of what you were talking about too, JP, is if he can't make those downfield throws, can they open up the run game by using himself more? What do you think on this matchup, JT?
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time seeing Ohio State coming off that Michigan loss, home playoff game, like this season, everything on the line. I have a hard time seeing them losing at home and not showing up in this matchup. But the biggest concern that I have is Ohio State's offensive line. I don't really think that's something that's been discussed because their offensive line's been really injured this year, and it's been really mediocre down the stretch. And when was the last time you saw an elite college football team go the distance with a mediocre offensive line that doesn't have like an elite Heisman level quarterback? Not to mention that this Tennessee defense just so happens to have one of the best defensive lines in the country. I feel like that's going to be a huge matchup problem for them. And if Will Howard's under pressure all day and they can't run the ball, like things could get really difficult and really ugly for Ohio State. And I think that's exactly where Tennessee wants to be. I have a hard time seeing Nico going in as a young quarterback and pulling off this upset, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they keep it within points.
I think everybody's starting to feel like this is going to be gross. This game's
got the lowest over-under. It's the only over-under under 50 points.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this thing being 17-13. Like the way we're describing it is if both quarterbacks can't find their groove, the defensive lines take over. It's going to be Michigan, Ohio State 2.0 with Tennessee's better than Michigan. I'm just going to say that. I understand Michigan won the game and beat Ohio State, but
good take.
It'd be very similar, right? Like it would just be gross. Somebody gets something going. I feel like this is awful, but they put the orange tee and the Buckeyes on the side of the helmet, so it's classified as everybody really good football.
Yes, that's very true. If you've never watched the show before, we are very big stands of if the SEC is 0-0 at halftime, it was elite defense. If the Big Ten 0-0 at halftime, it's just shitty football or anybody else. That's just how it goes in college football. It is 100% true. Another point to mention before we go to score predictions, I do want to talk about kicking game. I always like to mention it. Ohio State struggled down the stretch. It hurt them against Michigan. It hurt them against Nebraska in close games. They got to have more consistent kicking game, especially in these colder games with an elite defense like Tennessee has. So with that, let's go to score predictions, round table style. I'm going to make JT go first. JT, who wins, who covers, who's a difference maker?
Everything in this game is pointing for me to take Ohio State, especially if both these teams are struggling. I feel like Jeremiah Smith is definitely the player to watch. If Ohio State gets Jeremiah going, they will definitely be just fine. They'll end up winning this game. But I can't get over the Ohio State offensive line struggles and how well the Tennessee defensive line matches up against them. So I'm not really sure. Like, I can't really tell you how exactly it's going to happen, but I just have a feeling in that circumstance that Tennessee is going to pull this one out like 21-17.
All right. That's a stunning pick. I'm going to be on the opposite side. I like Ohio State in this matchup. I think their defense doesn't get enough flowers, like I said in the original start of this preview. And I think they're just going to stagger that Tennessee offense at home. I think they're going to bounce back. I think Ryan Day is going to have them Notre Dame level ready of grit, of screaming at people on their post-game interviews. I mean, they made something illegal, a felony, since the last time they played a football game. So we'll see where this one goes. Charmin soft that we posted about that, but absolutely soft. But I like Ohio State in this spot at home. I don't think they'll cover the number. I think it's going to be a 7-point game. I like him in this one. I'm going to say 27-20. I like Ohio State to win this game and bump out Tennessee, but Tennessee's defensive line is going to keep them relevant throughout the entire game.
You're going off whether I give you 6.5 or 7.5 on the graphic?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
I think 7.5 is a greasy. I mean, if you're giving me 7, I'll take. If you're giving me 6.5,
I don't know.
I'll take Ohio
I
State.
can't remember what I had on there. I'd have to look tonight to be sure I have the right number.
Yeah, clarify, people. These graphics, everything you see is made on either Monday or Tuesday night. The lines move. Unfortunately, I just can't help it. So I had 7.5 when I posted this up there. We'll see what we got on the ATS board. But Jake, who wins? Who covers? Who's the difference maker?
Vols 24,
Oh,
23.
we got a lot more underdog picks this week than I kind of thought we would.
20.
Justin, you
20
want to
Wow.
24, 23 outright. Do you want to lay your theory on them, Justin? Justin's got a working theory here.
Me and Jake were talking before our Iowa State breakdown the other day. And I may end up looking really stupid in this situation, but I just don't understand why all the spreads are so big this week. I know typical college football seasons, you expand the playoff, there'd be a lot more blowouts, but in a year where no team has looked dominant and all we've been talking about is the parity in college football, I just don't really see these favorites coming in and dominating this week. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I took the underdog in every single matchup this week, and the outright underdog.
I didn't think I'd have that many people on it.
But I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's one team that's going to be able to dominate unless a team's just not good enough and they crumble. I could see that happening, but I don't really think it's going to be a team that shines that's going to end up in a dominating fashion. And especially where a lot of these teams, a lot of their strengths are their defense. That just lends it to be a lot closer scoring games.
I think it's a great point to make. I was thinking that as I was making these graphics, is when I was making it for the conference title games, it was all 3, even 4.5. Even Penn State playing the number 1 team in the country, it was 4.5, 5. And that was even a high side for what that was. And these were
Neutrals.
significantly larger. So exactly. You think Columbus? I've said it before. Columbus is not that tough a place to play. They proved it again against Michigan. So what do you think, JP? You're wrapping this one up for us.
I kind of like the lower scoring aspect of this. I was going to go like 21-16, 21-18. Like I'm going to pick weird scores because somebody's going to go for 2 with some analytical BS, or somebody's going to kick an extra field goal, or something's going to happen. So I was going to go 21-18.
All right,
Ohio State. But
Do we?
that's going to be gross to watch.
go ahead, Jake.
Do we think one underdog wins outright this weekend?
Yes.
Clearly, I do. I took Tennessee, but if you had to,
Yeah, but this
bet on,
Yeah, I
bet
think we
your
all
life,
had one.
bet your life on it. You think one underdog wins outright this
I'm
weekend?
not betting my life on.
I'm not. Yeah, I probably wouldn't
I'll
bet my
bet you-
life on a
I'll
college
bet you
football
my
game. We
next
don't
Culver's
condone that
Deluxe.
here, but
Let's
Don't
have
count
a
out
little.
Dabo.
Let's have a.
Let's have a friendly wager, Jacob. My next Culver's Deluxe box is on you if none of the underdogs win.
no
If
free
none of
ads.
them
Shout out
win?
Culver's.
If none of them
I-
win.
I owe you if none of them win.
Culver's Deluxe.
Correct.
I mean, this with
I think
inflation
That's
you
what
in
you're
this
saying,
market,
right?
that's
You get at
$15
least
bucks.
one.
You should owe me if none of them win.
You just
Because
said
you
that
fast
at least
food.
one of them's going to win.
Yeah, I think one of them's going to win. So if one of them wins,
I would
then
owe you.
you don't think so? You don't
You're
think
making
one
this
of them,
really difficult,
I
Jacob.
think
You
you're
guys
both
might want to
arguing the
save
same
this for
point.
off the pod.
Yeah, this is a little messy here, but I think you're both saying that one underdog will win. So you can't make.
I know,
I
no,
will
I-
take the side of none of them win outright.
that's
I
what I
will-
was
oh.
going to ask you. You're
Yeah.
you're good with taking that?
Yeah, I'm like 52-48% sure that none of them win. So like, yeah, I'm a lot less
Yeah.
confident in it than you are. You're confident
Okay.
that one of them
Well,
wins outright. I'm not that confident.
I'm like 60-40 that an underdog is going to win outright this weekend.
All right, that's the college football playoff previews for this week. First round, we covered them all. That's
Messy.
Tennessee, Ohio State. Drop your score predictions in the comments of this YouTube clip for a chance to win a free No Rivals cap from shopnorivals.com. You pick the hat, we ship it to you. Shout out No Rivals, shopnorivals.com today. Let's go on to Best Bets in Dog's Dog to wrap up tonight's show. Already been an hour and a half. If you're still with us, we appreciate you being here. Let's go to Best Bets. Let's make the new guy go first, or the recurring guest, I should say, but hopefully the long-standing. JT, give us your best bet of the weekend.
Don't do
Yes,
that.
Can't
sir.
include
I'll
bowl
try-
games, by the way.
And don't do this 1A, 1B bullshit.
Yeah, like your brother does.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to make this fast as possible. I got San Jose State minus 4.5. Pretty simple. They've got one of the best passing offenses in the country with Nick Nash and Justin Lockhart. And USF has really struggled defending the pass this year. I believe they're bottom 100 in pass defense. I just think that's going to be a glaring mistake for them. So give me San Jose State.
Jacob, go ahead.
All right, San Jose State first off
Not
the board. Go
so
ahead, Jake.
That's my friend.
Alex Golish Homer over here.
He'd
No,
love
no, it's not that. No, I do not have USF. I was just gonna say that Nick Nash tweeted he's not playing today. So
Oh,
I mean,
fuck.
they're still
okay. Well,
they're still
that
gonna
changes.
run this.
He
Well,
gave
they're
it
still
out.
gonna run
Already
the
gave it
same
out.
Yeah, it's fine.
They're
They're
still
still
gonna run
good
the same
passing offense without him.
Yeah. So I just want you to know that he's not.
I
Playing.
may not love 4.5, but it's fine.
All right, there it is. Jake, give us your best bet.
Go Irish. We like Notre Dame. 7.5 is not ideal. I'm trying to wait for it to come down to 7, but sure, if you get 7.5, I think by Friday night, just take it. It'll be fine.
All right, okay. I can see that. I'm going to take my best bet, and this one's a little greasy, and I hate the number, and I understand there's opt-outs on both sides, but I think there's way too many mentionable opt-outs for Tulane. So give me Florida minus the 11 against the Green Wave. Green Wave
How
coming
you
off
getting
of
11?
a tough loss. What do you mean? It's 11
Is
live
it-
right now.
Is it really?
It's
When
11
I-
live
That's a
right
lot.
now.
It came
When
down-
I
came
took
down.
my notes on like Monday, it was 14.5.
It must
Yep,
come
it's
down.
11 live right now. So I'm going to bet
Welcome to bowl
against
games.
where the money's moving. That's exactly right. So give me Florida minus the 11 in the Gasparilla Bowl against a depleted Tulane roster and team JP.
Give me Iowa Western minus 3.5. No, I'm just kidding.
You can take it. If you can find a line, you can take it. That's a
They're up
Bovada line if I've
14
ever
right
heard
now.
it.
I've wanted this since last week when the matchups were announced. There's a show that I jumped into the comments of because they do some college baseball stuff I'm a fan of. And I said, auto bet Clemson team total 14.5. Well, the number came out and Vegas said I get 19.5. Clemson team total under 19.5. I would be stunned
Wow.
if they get to 20.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Justin,
That
we should just like ruin Christmas and have just an irresponsible amount of money on the San Jose State game. Christmas
I'm
Eve.
sure your parents will love that.
Please bet responsibly. Legal disclaimer, but go on.
Sorry. Like responsibly enough to where like we're not
As
actually gonna put,
responsible as possible.
Responsible
it's-
enough to
it's
where the
gonna be
Miller
like-
Lights flow at 7 a.m. because he's
Yeah.
stressed about it already.
but like irresponsible enough to where like me and Justin are just obnoxious about the bet, and mom's like, "It's Christmas, can we put on the Polar Express?" And we're like, "No, we have San Jose State. We need the points."
I already watched
Enough
it.
that it could ruin your night. Not your life, but enough that it could ruin the night.
Yes.
Put it that way. All right, let's go to the dog's dog to finish tonight's show. I'll kick it off. Yeah, mine's pretty obvious. I was the only one to pick them. Give me Indiana outright on the road against the Fighting Irish in Notre Dame. I like Paul Signetti's
Get a load
group.
of this
or
guy.
Paul Signetti, Kirk Signetti's group, and the Hoosiers, if I can get their name right. So give me Indiana on the road to kick off the 12-team playoff with an upset. Jake.
I think I'm back
Yeah.
in this one.
What'd you say?
If you're going where I think you're going,
I mean, I took him outright, so I might as well just take him, right? We're just gonna go Vols.
Me
Tennessee
too.
Volunteers. All right. Get on the board. Happy holidays, everybody. Take the Vols. Pay for your
All right.
presents.
Vols over Ohio State. JT, wrap us up. Last pick of the night.
All right, I will. When I took my notes for this, I had Tulane at plus 14.5. I thought that was just too many points. Much more nervous about 11.5, but my secondary bet would have been Tennessee. So we're sticking with Tulane. I mean, we got ourselves an old SEC rivalry here. Tulane may be slipping at the end of the year, but John Summerall re-upped his contract with them. The vibes are coming back, and I think they can cover 11.5.
All right. That's
Roll
everything we covered.
Fucking wave.
No, stop yapping your mouth. That's it. We covered everything tonight. So that is the college football playoff round 1. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the like button. Subscribe and follow on all platforms at Play the Fight Pod. We appreciate you being here. ShopNoRivals.com today. Use the code PTFS at checkout. We love you. We'll see you after Christmas. So Merry Christmas, all you bastards. We'll see you soon. Love you. Jake, take us away.
Happy holidays. Let's play it.